Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to lesson 31 in this series on developing a survival game. In this video, we'll set up our base water material. We'll be adding to this, so we have tessellation, waves, and then multiple waves in the rest of this subsection of section 4. That said, this series has been brought to you by my Patreon sponsors. And that said, fire up your project and let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video for section 4, in particular section 4A, in which we'll be working on our water material. Now, we will be updating this water material in later sections our water system in later sections so we can add in swimming. But for this part, we're just working on the material. We're not going to work on the post-processing effect until later in the series, and we're just going to be applying this to a plane for now. That said, also this water system is going to use a very complex shader, or not very complex, but relatively complex, with just 441 instructions for our shader, 481 for our surface light map, and 526 for our volumetric map. It's a bit complex, but it didn't really mess with the FPS too much. And when I'm not streaming, I'm still getting around 120 FPS. So hey, when I'm streaming, it drops to about 60 to 90, depending on what I'm doing. So this is going to be a bit complex. I apologize for that. It's going to be a bit messy. I also apologize for that. But we're going to do this in, I think it's going to be in 3 videos. We're going to take care of the base sort of albedo and coloring in this video. In the other 2 videos, we'll be taking care of tessellation and waves. So that said, let's go to our survival game, go to materials. And in materials, we're going to create a new folder called water. Let's go ahead and open up our water folder. And in here, we're going to create a new material called m_water. And we're going to have another folder later on for our material functions, because a tessellation function we'll use elsewhere. And we're going to have another material function actually in here because it's water related only. But for now, pop open your water. This is very important. I want you to make a note of where we do this at, because a lot of the issues that I have had in working with the system and doing these recordings have come up because I've missed something in the step I'm about to do here. So make a note of where we're at, or where you're at right now, the timestamp, what have you, so you know to come back here just for one of your checks. So what I want you to do is select the material node here. Make sure that your material domain is surface. Your blend mode is translucent, that it is a 2-sided material. If you are using a new version of the engine, you can make the choice on ray tracing or not, which will be right under our use material attributes. Scroll down a bit, and we have under translucency, this lighting mode, and we want surface translucency volume. There we go. And we have a few more changes we need to make. So if we go down to usage, we should have a use static lighting. Select that. We will take care of the tessellation down the road, but one of the most important ones, the one that has causes me a lot of issues, is the refraction rate here. We need to set this to pixel normal offset. And if you're getting a weird line, you might get the line before we finish this, by the way, but if you're getting a weird line when we're done with the entire water tutorial, especially if you're having that issue when we set up the lighting on the island itself in the 3rd part of this section, this is where the issue is. We will come back and update tessellation, by the way, and I'll tell you now, we will be using our flat triangle tessellations. So that's just for people who are coming back to review stuff down the road. All right, that said, let's get started with the meat of today's work, which is our base color. We're going to start there. So we're going to use 3 different colors to get our base color system to work. So I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to hold down the 3 key and click. Then I'm going to right click this. Oops, sorry. My 3 key has just, I'm pausing the video real quick. likely I was unable to edit this out, so hey, if everyone's curious, my 3 key is broken and it just went haywire there randomly. So I'm going to right click this, convert to parameter, and I'm just going to call this my base color near. So we're going to have a near color. I'm going to duplicate this node. I'm going to rename this one as my base color far. So we're going to have 3 colors. Actually, I should have set the color to begin with. We're going to set this to white by 110, or all ones on the RGB and 0 on the alpha. Do this for all of them. There we go. It's going to be a bit boring in here, but when we get to actually setting the parameters up, it's going to look a little bit nicer. And then we're going to have a Wavecrest color. Now, if you're really brave, you can update the system to have a 4th color in, or replace the Wavecrest, or maybe the near, depending on how you want to do it. And you can add sea foam in for close up on the shores. We might do that down the road. I doubt we will, but hey, it is an option. And I'm going to name this 3rd one our Wavecrest color. So these are our 3 colors, and we have to move between them. So how do we move between colors? Well, we can lerp between them. So we're going to lerp between our near color and our Wavecrest color. So we'll do a lerp, or linear interpolate. And so it moves between A and B. So we're going to move between these two, which will just be between white and white, really. Also, one thing I'm going to do is turn on my live nodes. You don't need to. I just like having them on for this bit. And then we're going to lerp between whatever comes out of here and our far color. So I'm just going to duplicate this lerp node here, plug the A into there, and then plug our base far into B. And this is going to go directly into our base color. Now, of course, there is one problem with this. Well, how do we know what settings our lerps should be? Well, that's our alphas. And our alphas in this case are a bit complex, but let's just first comment this out as our base colors. So let's take care of our near versus Wavecrest color real quick, which I'm just seeing the typo in that, and it's going to drive me crazy, so let me just fix it real quick. Also, while we're doing this, one thing I'm going to... There isn't in the world, I'm not sure why. It's one thing I don't like about materials, how long it takes to save everything. We're just going to pin that in there real quick. I'm going to get rid of that 2 at the end. Alright, so let's take care of the lerp for our near and our crest. The way we're going to do this is we're going to use a texture that we're going to pan through. So we'll talk about panning in just a moment. Let's get some texture samples on here though real quick. So texture sample, and I'm just going to use that node right there. And it's actually going to be the same sample we're going to use twice. So I'm going to be a bit cheeky and just type in T water. And you'll notice we have this T water M. Let's just click the magnifying glass to find it. It's in our starter content, by the way, so we do need our starter content for this. I am going to take that node, and actually I'm going to go to my textures here first real quick. I'm going to create a water folder in there, and then I'm going to go back to my starter content, find that water texture down there, and I'm going to move it into there. There it is. I'm going to fix up my redirectors. Make sure that's going to the right spot. It is. And I'm going to duplicate. Actually, I will duplicate this node in one moment. I'm going to instead work backwards from here. So, actually, I'm going to work towards here. So this is where we need to reach. We're then going to have a second set of these that we're going to combine together, and that will create our lerp. So we need this image to move. So we're having a movement of waves. Well, the way we're going to do that is through a panner node. And a panner node moves an image. And it moves it at certain rates. So we're going to move it at one rate in the x, which is negative 0.008 by negative 0.008. Now, when we do that, we just plug this into, say, right there into our UV. And we refresh this. we can see that it's moving very slowly. It is indeed moving, but it is very, very, very slow. And we want that to be. The next one's going to be a little bit faster and a little bit more zoomed in. Of course, we're going to want some stuff between there and our panning. Also, to make our panning better, we're going to use textural coordinates, and we also have to account for the tiling. So when we place something in the world, there's a tiling effect. And part of this, by the way, is to hide the tiling effect. And so to do that, we need a texture coordinate. And our texture coordinate, we can see has U and V tiling there. And we are going to tile this at 0.75 by 0.75. And we want to multiply our texture coordinate by a tiling system we'll have in place. So I'm going to hit 1 here to get a scalar parameter, which I'll convert over to an actual parameter. I'm going to call this tiling. I'm going to default my tiling to 1. And I'm not going to give it a min or max. It is going to be a fairly high tiling we actually use. I think it's 15 if memory serves. And I want to add these two together. So to do that, or multiply them together, I get a multiply node. Plug that into there. And now we've multiplied our texture coordinate by our tiling amount. So whatever we're tiling by, so if it's 15, it's really 75% of 15 instead of the full 15. Now, because I've had issues going straight into the panner here, I am going to use a mask. We want a component mask, and I am going to mask the R and the G channels. Then we can go into there. There we go. Now, the next thing, and this is a bit that is we might update down the road, but this makes life a bit easier in terms of getting the camera angles right, is we want to rotate our textures just slightly. And to do that, we can do a custom rotator. We're going to plug that into our UV there. There we go. And we have our first sort of line done. Now, we need to set this rotator still. What we're going to do is just hold down the 1 key again. We're not going to convert this to a scalar variable or a parameter. Just leave it as a scalar value of 0.25. This is going to go into our rotation angle. Hold down the 2 key, because we need a vector 2 up there. That's what that V2 stands for. S is scalar. There we go. And we're going to have a vector 2 that we set to 0.5 by 0.5, and this is actually what really helps rotate it. So that tells you the center. This is going to the center, and this is how much we rotate it by. So center is halfway in the X, halfway in the Y. And here is how much we want to rotate by, 25%. So we're turning it 90 degrees, in other words. So I'm going to take all these nodes from the texture coordinate all the way through to our texture sample, minus the 3 in the center, and I'm going to duplicate them down here. I'm going to line them up. And that can go into there. And that can go into there. And that can go into there. Now we need to make some changes on this one. So let's start with our texture coordinate. In this case, we're going to use a 0.05 by 0.08 texture chord. Multiply doesn't get changed because it's literally A times B. The mass doesn't get changed. Our panner does get changed though. We want this one to be a bit faster. So we're going to do minus 0.03 and minus 0.07. Now if we come over here, you notice it's moving faster. We're much more zoomed in on it. All right, we want to combine these two together. So we're going to do a multiply. That goes into there. And I just having this multiply open so I can see it. And I need a bit more room. By the way, you can see what's going to happen. So you see how there's that light moving, which is this one down here? That is our Wavecrest. That's our B. So this is the Wavecrest. This is the near color. Sorry, I can remember if it was near or far suddenly. Now we want to clamp the value here. And to do that, we're just going to get a clamp. And we're clamping it really between 0 and 1. Sorry if you can hear the radiators in the background. So with a clamp between 0 and 1, we're going to go straight into this alpha. And you'll notice that when we do this, if I just put a reroute in for a moment here, And let's just change our Wavecrest color to black for a moment. All right, if I pop this open, we might be able to see it. Hopefully we can. Let's up the channel on that alpha to 1 there. There, you can see the Wavecrest come up just for a moment. It's a bit hard to see, but it will pop up, hopefully again. It is a bit hard to see without actual colors in, but it will create this, it should create this light effect that we have right there. All right, so that is our near wave and wave cresting textures. So let me just call this our near wave and wave crest texturing. All right, so that's part of what we need to do for our base color. As I said, this is gonna be a bit complex. We're gonna work our way down. We're gonna ignore this alpha for a moment and work our way down into other parts of this first. When we get to our normals, we'll tackle this, but the final alpha. So next we have our metallic, specular, and roughness. Let's tackle those three really quickly. So metallic is literally what it says on the tin. It's how metal-like a surface is. So non-metals, if you think about this in a very simple sense, should be 0, whereas metal should be 1. So usually a surface is 0 or 1. However, this is a scalar value, so it does have a range between 0 and 1. So if you have a dusty surface, a corroded surface, what have you, you might use a value between there. We're going to use a value between there because we're getting certain lighting effects, and that's what we're going to kind of bank on this system to help us with. So I'm going to hold on the 1 key, which will create a scalar variable. I'll convert it over to a parameter called metallic. By the way, you could just right-click this and promote to a parameter. Plug that into there, and on this one, I am going to just set a default value of 0.8 for now, a base minimum of 0, and a max of 1. All right, next we have specular, and specular is kind of the opposite of metallic. So when we're editing a non-metallic surface, we might want to adjust how much it reflects light. So this is the specularity of the object. And again, it's between 0 and 1, where 0 is non-reflective and 1 is fully reflective. So in this case, we're gonna just hit the, actually we're gonna right click the specular and promote to parameter and just leave this as specular. We are gonna leave it at 0. We are gonna set the max slider above the actual max. Actually, we're going to set it to 1. We're not going to set it above the actual max. We are then going to do roughness. And roughness controls, well, how rough or smooth the surface is. So the rougher the material, the more scattered reflected light is, the more it's moved in different directions. So it controls really how blurry or sharp a reflection is. So a roughness of 0 is very smooth, and a roughness of 1 is very rough. It's less reflective. And so again, we're gonna right click and promote this to a parameter called roughness, which will range between 0 and 1. Notice how that got a little bit shinier, and we can see the sort of lines I was talking about. We'll take care of that partially. We're gonna default this to a value of 0.1 and set our max to 1 there. All right, now comes the trickier bit, our opacity and our refraction. So opacity is really how much we can see through something, the translucency of it, and refraction is how light bends when it passes through the object. So if you're ever in a pool of water and you look up, you notice how you can see at different angles than you could if you didn't have water above you, or how if you look through a glass, you might see the light bend, or you might see through the glass at a weird angle. That's refraction. It's how the light is bending through the object. I am not going to do a physics lesson. This entire section would be full of physics lessons if I was going to be teaching the underpinning concepts of the math that make this work. I don't have the ability to teach it. I barely understand it. So the way we're going to do opacity is a bit more complex. We're going to use something called Fresnel, which is spelled Fresnel, just to make life a little bit more fun. So what is Fresnel? Well, Fresnel is basically the angle at which we're looking at something affects how that light is refracted. It affects the quality or strength of the reflection. So a steep angle will lead to a weak reflection, where a shallow angle will lead to a strong reflection. Again, I'm pretty sure anyone who understands physics just cringed at me, but hey, it's the simplest sort of way we can cover this. So we're going to take this Fresnel, and we're going to leave our base exponent as is, and we're going to take our exponent in as is, but we are going to change our refraction rate. We're going to promote that to a variable, and we're going to call that one opacity in actuality, because this will go into our opacity. And we're going to default our opacity to I'm not sure what just happened there, to 0.1. Put that back to 0 with a max of 1. And for our normal, what we're going to do is we're going to use our pixel normal world space. So this, if we just hold down Control Alt, is an expression that gives a vector representing the direction the pixels are facing based on the current normal. So basically this is what's going to tell us our camera angle. That's the simplest way I can put it. We're going to plug that into normal. We are going to multiply this. And what we're going to multiply this by is our refraction rate. So our refraction, actually we're going to multiply it not by our refraction rate, sorry I lied to you, by our depth fade. And what our depth fade is, if we hold this down, is it's used to hide seams, really. It's used to help with opaque objects. So when translucent objects intersect with opaque ones. So in other words, let's say imagine we had a plane of water in here, and this is our shoreline. It handles what happens when we intersect our plane of water with this shoreline here. We are going to use this depth fade with our refraction. So we're just going to leave this here for a moment, and we're going to plug this into our opacity. All right, so this is our opacity calculation. We're just going to leave that there for a moment. Next, we have our normal. And we're going to take care of our normal down here, because this is going to be just so very complex. So we want to make the water look like it's moving without actually moving it at this stage. The way we're going to do that is, well, panner nodes. And we're going to use texture samples. I'm just going to tape these 4 nodes, the panners and the textures. I use Control, by the way, to do that multi-select. I'm going to duplicate them down here. I'm just going to move these closer. So what we're doing here is moves the water. We're going to use our normal textures here. So we type in water again. We have this water N, T water N. Not sure what that's something we don't want. We want T water N right here. And we're going to duplicate that down here. We want T water N. We're going to hunt it down. It's that one right there. We're going to move this again into our new water textures. There we go. And we're going to fix up redirectors. If for some reason the water breaks between the 2 videos, it's just that it doesn't know where these are located anymore. Let's plug our panners in. All right, and our panner is going to be a bit different. It's going to be in this one, 0.001 and 0.008. That number should look familiar. And for our lower panner here, you can see the water is moving now. It's going to be, well, it's actually the same values, negative 0.03 and negative 0.07. We are going to, actually you should have taken all of this. We're going to have the same thing down here. So we're going to have the same masks going to our coordinates. Now the difference on this one is our texture tiling will be 1 and 1 on this top one. And on this bottom one, it will be 0.5 and 0.5, not 0.5, 0.5. And the effect should be, if we look at this, that one looks more zoomed in than the other. All right, sorry there's a little bit of jump. I wanted to double check that I had everything set up correctly, because for some reason in my other version it looks more zoomed in, but I think that's just the difference between my monitor and this. Off of our red channel, we're going to append, and we're going to append our green channel in. We're going to do the same on the bottom there. So duplicate this node down here, plug in the red and green channels, and then line everything up. All right, we want to add these two together. So do an add, plug that into there. There we go. And then we're gonna multiply this. And this multiply is just to control for a bit of the strength of this. And we're gonna kind of reduce it. I mean, you can play with this if you want, but I'm gonna default this out to 0.2. Actually, I'm gonna promote this to a parameter, and we're gonna call this our normal strength, and it will range between 0 and 1. All right, we're gonna use this with our derive normal z expanded function, or sorry, function. I'm not sure why I call it expanded, Jesus, which is a material function that's useful when we're normalizing things that are gonna have weird z inputs. So we're gonna do derive normal z function. We are going to leave everything else in here as is. This is where it gets a bit weird. We're gonna go from here all the way up to actually, we're gonna duplicate our Fresnel node first. I skipped something. We want to duplicate our Fresnel node right there. I'm gonna move our opacity out of the way just a bit. And with our duplicated Fresnel node, we are going to pull from here, and we're gonna saturate. This is what we're gonna use mixed with our normals to control for our lerp on our base color. So I'm gonna come into there, and then I am going to actually add another reroute here because I don't like how that looks. I'm gonna select those nodes and move them down here so it's a little bit easier to follow the path. So off of this one is a bit different. We're gonna have our exponent in as a parameter, and this will be our Fresnel exponent, which I'm gonna leave at 0 for now. This will be our Fresnel base, or Fresnel base. I'm saying Fresnel to remember myself how to spell it, by the way. Which we'll also leave at 0. We will not put our min or max in. We're going to take this result and plug this into the normal. And there we go. We now actually have our base albedo taken care of. So let's highlight all of these nodes, comment them out as color, and we're just going to move this up here so we have a bit of room. Our opacity is done. We're going to move this back this way. This is not going to be a nice and neat looking thing, unfortunately. Our normal, well, let's talk about what's going on here. We're controlling our tiling, or control tiling. We have our moving the water. We have the actual controlling of the normals. So this is our normals. And for now, we're going to take this result. I'm not going to put a reroute in because I'm not going to put a reroute in. We're going to come off of here and go into our normals. And there we go. We are going to get rid of this down the road because we're going to have something else we need to do with the normals. There we go. I am not going to comment that out. Actually, no, I am going to comment this out as normals just for now, even though we will have more. So, wow, I spelled normal wrong because I can't see what I'm typing. So this is our normal. I've expanded out. It's like we're going to have one more node right here. It doesn't relate to what's going on up here, but it relates to what's going into our normal. And let's take care of our refraction as our last little bit. And our refraction is going to lerp between a rate of 1 and a max. So we're going to do a lerp node. So we have a linear interpolate. And we're going to use our depth fade as our alpha. And we're going to just have the base be 1. So that's just literally our A. So between 1 and a max. So this max will be, we call refraction. And we're going to default this to 1.5 for now. And that goes into our B. And that goes into our refraction there. And this is our refraction. All right. Wow, we are 30 minutes into this, and we're now done with everything we need to do. Just so we can take a look at what we're doing, just for the heck of it, we're going to just save this real quick. With it saved, we're going to create a material instance. So go back to your materials folder. Go to water, right click this, create material instance, and this will be our M water instance. All right, I'm going to add a plane to this map. I'm going to raise the plane up, and I am going to turn off collision on this. So just expand that out. Default will be no collision, and then I've gone the wrong way because fingers are just not on the home keys today. We're gonna just expand this out a bit. So I'm gonna go to my top view, and there we go. I'm now bigger than the map, I think. Just be on the safe side. I am now bigger than the map. All right, with it bigger than our map, let's go back to our perspective mode. Hey, there's that weird thing. Let's drag our material instance onto our element there. And we can now kind of see the effect. It's a bit weird because of just numerous issues. Now, we're going to play with the numbers real quick. I need to point out one thing before we do this. Whatever numbers we use, we might change when we get to our actual island. So let's open up our material instance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to undock it, and I'm going to move it to this side. Just going to expand it out so it covers my corner of my screen here. There we go. It's actually kind of how I want it. And let's start with our base color far. I am going to go for a darker bluish green. You can see as you move it what it kind of looks like. It's actually closer to what I want for the near color right about there. Yeah, start this down here for a moment, and I know what the values are. Let me just put it in as 0.09874 by 0.03648 by 0.0358882, and that's the color I want as far. You can see it in the distance there. For my near color, I want a grayish lighter blue. I'm going to go for 0.256266. Actually, I want you to see what this is doing, so I'm just going to grab this real quick, and it's a bit harder to see this one, unfortunately. If we zoom out a bit, we might be able to see it a bit better. Might be really hard at this point to see, but trust me that you will see this one. So this is 0.265266 by 0.348958 by 0.346949. For my Wavecrest color, well, I'm going to go to a very similar shade up here. And what I'm going to do for this one is it's going to be 0.03355. That actually might be wrong, but we're going to leave it for that for now. 0.055 for my green, and 0.054535. And then I'm going to set the alpha on this one to 1. And I'm just going to double check that number should be that's correct. All right. So those are my vector parameters for now. We're going to have 4 more vector parameters, by the way, when we're done. For our tiling, and that's the part I want to tackle next early. This will make this a little bit easier. We're going to set our tiling to be about 15.446. And now you can see the waves a bit more clearly. You can see the distortions in the water. It's just a bit easier to see. There we go. I'm also going to raise the water up just a bit higher. There we go. So I'm going to get rid of this cube now. That one, and also that one. And that, because I want that walkway to be a bit clearer. I'm going to just walk up here, and I can take a better look at the material. In fact, I'm going to leave the camera right there. So from there, I'm going to take let's go to my Fresnel base. And my Fresnel base, I'm going to just play with the settings here for a moment, see what it does. Can't see much that way, so I'm going to go down. Well, this is really hard to see for now, so we're going to leave that as is. We'll come back to that down the road. Let's play with the exponent for a moment, see what happens. You can see a change in the lighting there. So I know that I want this at about 0.783, so it's a bit darker. Our metallic I'm going to have to about 0.4. You can see it's gotten a bit lighter again, so we're just balancing things out a bit. My strength normal I'm going to leave as is. My opacity, well, I don't like how see-through this is, so I'm going to go to 0.5. Maybe one a little bit darker. Let's go to 0.83. There we go. So now we're getting a bit more water-like in our look. Again, we can see the wave effects. Our refraction, let's play with this for a bit. Ooh, we can get some really weird distortions. It's kind of fun, isn't it? I'm going to go to -2. So that we have this nice sort of light bending weirdly. Our roughness, I'm going to leave at 0.1. Our specular, let's play with this for a bit. You can kind of see a bit of a lighting difference. And this is a bit subtle, so I'm going to go to 4.42. And we've taken care of our tiling. So that takes us through setting up the base of our water. We will be updating this as we move forward. But that said, we now have a base sort of color and watering system. And you can see the Wavecrest lighting, a little bit of different light moving through, or color moving through that water there. You can see the pixel depth fade in that corner over here, which is what is going on with that lighting there. Unfortunately, it's a bit too high for us to see from there, so let's just take a step out. That's that pixel fade when we intersect those hard corners. You can see it over here as well. It's not as nice, but we'll be taking care of that effect that you can see there as we get farther into working on this. So you can see the water is having this sort of natural movement on its own. We will make our waves much more realistic though in the next few videos, as well as tessellating the surface of our water. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors like Galwa, Hanas, 1Volt10, Quad Benson, Connor, and Rian. If you've enjoyed the series, make sure to hit the like button down below. Or if you've enjoyed making your water, make sure to hit that like button down below. If you want to be here as we continue to work on our water system, or at least the material, make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon so you know when the next video is out. If you do not hit the notify icon, you might not be notified by YouTube when that video is out for quite some time. All of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next video in this section on setting up our water material, which we will be setting up our actual Geisner wave functions and our tessellation. That said, I look forward to seeing you in the next video, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.